It's a quiet Sunday morning in the spring of 1945, near the small town of Bly, Oregon. The air is crisp, filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. Pastor Archie Mitchell, his pregnant wife Elsie, and 5 children from their Sunday school class are out for a picnic. A rare moment of peace far from the war raging across the oceans. The wind whispers through the tops of the tall ponderosa pines, a gentle, shushing sound that blends with the gurgle of a nearby creek. The children's laughter echoes through the clearing as they explore the woods after their meal. Then one of them calls out, "Lying half buried in a bed of pine needles is something strange, something that doesn't belong." It's a large, pale sphere made of what looks like silk paper deflated and ghostly white against the forest floor. Ropes trail from it like tangled veins, leading to a small metal ring that glints in the dappled sunlight. It's a curiosity, an unexpected treasure found on a woodland adventure. The group gathers around, intrigued. Elsie and the children move closer, drawn in by the mystery of the object. Pastor Mitchell, who had been parking their car a short distance away, hears their excited chatter and calls out a warning, a sense of unease creeping into his voice. But it's too late. They are already reaching for it, their hands just inches from the strange device. The scene holds, frozen for a heartbeat, a perfect picture of innocence on the verge of being shattered. To understand what's about to happen in that silent Oregon forest, we have to pull back, rewind the clock by several months, and cross the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. By late 1944, Japan is burning. Its cities, built of wood and paper, are turning to ash under the relentless firebombing campaigns of American B-29s. The war machine is grinding down, and desperation is setting in. The military leadership is searching for a way anyway to strike back, to hit the American mainland and prove that the United States is not untouchable. They need a weapon that can cross 5,000 miles of ocean undetected. The answer isn't found in a new kind of bomber or a submarine. It's found in the sky itself. Years before the war, a Japanese meteorologist named Wasaburo Oishi had made a groundbreaking discovery. He sent weather balloons high into the atmosphere and realized they were traveling east at incredible speeds, sometimes over 200 miles per hour. He had discovered a powerful high-altitude river of air, a current that snaked its way across the Pacific. We know it today as the jet stream. At the time, it was a scientific curiosity. But in the desperate days of 1944, military planners saw its potential. Could a weapon ride this invisible wind? Could they send destruction across an entire ocean carried on a current of air? This gave birth to one of the most audacious and secret weapons programs of the war, Operation Fugo. The plan was as elegant as it was terrifying. Thousands of unmanned balloons crafted from mulberry paper and filled with hydrogen would be launched from the coast of Japan. Each would carry a payload of incendiary and anti-personnel bombs. The engineers calculated the altitudes, the weight, the precise amount of gas needed. They designed a clever system of sandbags and altimeters to keep the balloons floating at the correct height for the 3-day journey. Their belief was simple: fire and fear could be wafted across the sea. While Japanese schoolgirls were enlisted to glue together the massive paper envelopes, American families on the West Coast went about their lives, completely unaware that the winter skies now carried invisible, silent visitors. And so we return to that sunlit clearing in Oregon. To Pastor Mitchell watching in horror as his wife and the children he shepherds gather around the fallen ghost from the sky, they see a curious tangle of paper and metal. They don't see the culmination of a secret plan, a weapon born of desperation and scientific ingenuity. They don't see the 33-pound high-explosive bomb nestled within its frame. The quiet of the forest holds its breath, the scene suspended on the knife edge of detonation. This is the story of how a weapon made of paper and hydrogen, riding a river of wind, tried to set America alight. The year is 1944. Japan's war machine is running on fumes. The vast Pacific, once a highway for its powerful navy, has become a graveyard. With catastrophic naval losses and a severe shortage of fuel, conventional attacks on the American mainland are now impossible. The leadership, cornered and desperate, is ready to gamble on something truly audacious, something born not of brute force but of sheer, almost poetic, ingenuity. Enter Major General Tsuyoshi Kusaba, head of the Army's 9th Technical Research Institute. He and his team are tasked with an extraordinary challenge: to strike a continent thousands of miles away, without pilots, without ships, without fuel. Their solution was as elegant as it was menacing. It wouldn't be a plane or a submarine. It would be a balloon. But this was no ordinary balloon. Imagine a sphere, 10 meters in diameter, meticulously crafted from countless small panels of washi, a traditional Japanese paper made from mulberry bark. This delicate paper skin was laminated into 3 or 4 layers and then coated with a lacquer made from konjac, a type of yam, to make it waterproof and airtight. Instead of helium, which was scarce, they would use highly flammable hydrogen. The real genius, however, was its brain. The balloon was designed to be an autonomous weapon, a silent traveler on the high-altitude jet stream. Its payload was suspended from a complex chandelier-like aluminum ring. This wasn't just a bomb carrier. It was a sophisticated automatic altitude control device. The core of the system was a set of 3 aneroid barometers. If the balloon dropped below 30,000 feet, these sensitive instruments would trigger an electrical circuit firing a small charge that would release one of about 32 sandbags, lightening the load and allowing the balloon to rise back into the colder, thinner air. If it rose too high, a valve controlled by a barometer would vent some of the precious hydrogen. This clockwork mechanism was designed to keep the balloon floating between 30,000 and 38,000 feet for its entire 3-day journey across the Pacific. The final part of the sequence was the attack itself. After a calculated 72 hours, a timer would trigger the release of its deadly cargo. Several incendiary bombs and a single 15-kilogram high-explosive anti-personnel bomb. Then, a final fuse would light, igniting a block of picric acid to destroy the balloon and its secrets, leaving no trace. The creation of these weapons was a massive, almost surreal national effort. Picture schoolgirls, their hands sticky with rice glue, hunched over in gymnasiums and even sumo halls, painstakingly pasting together the thousands of paper gores that formed each balloon's skin. In makeshift factories, women and men worked tirelessly, lacquering the paper until their arms were stained and stiff up to the elbows. Meanwhile, technicians and meteorologists stood on the windy coast of Honshu, launching smaller pilot balloons, their eyes fixed on the sky, meticulously tracking the invisible currents that would carry their creations to a distant, unseen enemy. The first launch was symbolic, timed for Emperor Meiji's birthday, November 3, 1944, from 3 coastal launch sites, Nakozo, Atsu, and Ichinomiya. The first wave of these silent phantoms was released. Under the cover of darkness, the ritual began. Ropes snaked free from their moorings. Valves hissed, releasing hydrogen into the vast paper spheres, swelling them into taut, pale globes straining against the night sky. One by one, they were let go. They rose silently, shrinking against the canopy of stars until they were indistinguishable from them. They caught the powerful river of wind, the jet stream, and began their eastward journey. Thousands of miles away in North America, snow was falling in the mountains of the Pacific Northwest. Life went on as usual. No one was looking up. Not yet. In the winter of 1944, a rancher in Montana, riding out to check his herd, saw something glinting in the snow. It was a strange, silvery skin like collapsed silk. He had no idea what he was looking at. A few weeks later, hundreds of miles north in British Columbia, a crew of loggers stopped their work, staring up at the treetops. The highest branches of a massive fir were scorched black, as if a localized lightning strike had hit on a perfectly clear day. And out on the Pacific, a U.S. Navy patrol boat fished a tattered waterproofed envelope from the choppy waves. Inside, the paper was ruined, but the mystery deepened. These weren't isolated events. They were the first scattered clues of a silent invasion. The puzzle pieces started arriving at labs across the United States. A fragment of paper went to the Naval Ordnance Laboratory. A strange embossed battery was sent to MIT for analysis. Army G2 intelligence officers examined bits of metalwork, finding something crucial: Japanese kanji characters stamped into the metal. The sand used as ballast was even more specific. Geologists traced its mineral composition directly to 2 beaches in Japan, Senragahama and Ichinomiya on the island of Honshu. The picture was becoming alarmingly clear. Japan was launching something across the Pacific, but what, and to what end? The immediate fear wasn't just about random objects falling from the sky. It was about what they might carry. In Washington, D.C., a quiet but urgent decision was made. Byron Price, the director of the Office of Censorship, made a direct appeal to the nation's newspapers and radio stations. He asked them to report nothing. No stories about strange discoveries, no mentions of mysterious fires. The logic was simple and cold. If the Japanese never heard about where their balloons were landing, or if they were landing at all, they would have no way to correct their aim or even know if the campaign was successful. The American public would be kept in the dark to keep the enemy blind. But for the officials in the know, the silence was deafening, filled with a growing uneasiness. What if these balloons weren't just carrying simple explosives to start forest fires? What if the next one carried something far worse? Chemical agents? Or even biological payloads, anthrax, cholera, plagues designed to spread through the heartland? The fear was very real. Then, an incident occurred that proved the stakes were higher than anyone imagined. A balloon drifted over southern Washington state. Its dangling wires made contact with the high-voltage power lines feeding the Hanford engineer works. The lines shorted out, triggering an automatic shutdown of the nuclear reactor below the very reactor producing the plutonium for the atomic bomb project. The top-secret Manhattan Project had just been temporarily knocked offline by a paper balloon. The threat of widespread forest fires, however, remained the most immediate danger. To combat it, the military initiated a secret mission, Operation Firefly. They turned to one of their most elite, yet most overlooked units, the 555th Parachute Infantry Battalion. Known as the Triple Nickels, they were the nation's first all-black airborne unit. These men were highly trained paratroopers, but because of segregation, the army was hesitant to send them into combat in Europe. Instead, they were diverted from the war they'd trained for and sent west. Their new mission was to become smoke jumpers. They were retrained by the Forest Service, learning to parachute not onto battlefields, but into the remote, rugged wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. Their job was to chase down any suspicious blaze, to get to the fires started by these mystery balloons before they could rage out of control. Imagine the scene: a soldier, far from home, his rucksack holding letters he's written but can't yet send. A folded newspaper clipping with news of a war he's not allowed to fight. He stands on a fire line at dusk, axe in hand, staring into the glowing embers of a fire started by an enemy 5,000 miles away. These men were risking their lives, jumping into infernos, serving a country that still treated them as second-class citizens. They were fighting a secret war within a war, their bravery and their very existence hidden from the public. As winter thawed into a nervous spring, the silence across the country held. But high above, unheard and unreported in the jet stream, the balloons just kept coming. The story returns, as it must, to that fateful spring day in Oregon. May 5th, 1945. Gerhardt Mountain rises over the Fremont National Forest, the air crisp with the scent of pine. A Sunday school picnic is underway, a scene of simple, pastoral peace. Reverend Archie Mitchell parks his car, letting his pregnant wife, Elsie, and 5 children from their church scramble out, eager for the day's adventure. The names deserve to be remembered with care and accuracy. Elsie Mitchell. And the children, Sherman, Edward, Jay, Joan, and Dick. As Reverend Mitchell moved the car, Elsie and the children walked ahead, finding something strange and wonderful nestled in the forest floor. A large, pale object, like a deflated weather balloon, with odd contraptions hanging from it. Curiosity, that most human of instincts, took over. One of the children reached out, perhaps tugging at a rope or a dangling piece of machinery. Elsie might have called out, a warning half-formed on her lips. A sudden sense of unease cutting through the idyllic afternoon, but it was too late. In an instant, the forest's gentle silence was shattered by a deafening roar. A 15-kilogram high-explosive anti-personnel bomb, which had traveled over 5,000 miles on the wind, fulfilled its deadly purpose. The blast echoed through the trees, followed by a profound, chilling quiet. When a stunned Archie Mitchell reached the scene, he found only devastation. These 6 individuals would become the only people to die from enemy action on the mainland, United States during the entirety of World War II. The tragedy on Gerhardt Mountain forced the American government's hand. The secret could no longer be contained. The Office of Censorship faced an impossible dilemma. To go public with the full story would be to hand Tokyo the proof of success they desperately craved, potentially encouraging a larger, more devastating wave of attacks. But to remain silent risked more picnics ending in tragedy, more innocent lives lost to these silent, floating killers. A choice had to be made. The policy of absolute silence was cautiously, carefully lifted. Newspapers and radio stations were finally permitted to issue warnings. Though the language was vague, calculated not to cause panic or reveal too much. Bulletins urged citizens, especially in the western states, not to touch or disturb any strange balloon-like objects they might find on the ground. The military response also intensified. Patrols were widened. The all-black 555th Parachute Infantry Battalion, the Triple Nickels, were diverted from their combat training and assigned to a new secret mission codenamed Operation Firefly. They became smoke jumpers, parachuting into the remote wilderness of the Pacific Northwest to combat fires, many suspected to be caused by the balloon bombs. Their mission was perilous. They weren't just fighting flames. They were jumping into rugged, unforgiving terrain. Men were lost not to enemy fire, but to hard landings, to the unforgiving embrace of giant trees, their parachutes tangled in the high branches. They were fighting a phantom enemy, a war of wind and fire. Across the vast Pacific, in the command centers of the Japanese 9th Army Technical Research Laboratory, officers scanned American newspapers and monitored radio broadcasts with growing frustration. They listened for reports of mysterious explosions, of widespread panic, of forest fires raging out of control. But they heard nothing. The American censorship, for all its agonizing costs, had been remarkably effective. From their perspective, their grand, ingenious weapon had simply vanished into the void. The 9,000 balloons they had painstakingly launched seemed to have had no effect whatsoever. The project, already strained by dwindling resources, began to falter. The hydrogen gas needed to inflate the great paper orbs was precious, needed more urgently for other war efforts. The special paper, the konyaku glue, the complex launch procedures, it was all becoming an unsustainable drain. By April 1945, even before the tragedy in Oregon, the order had already been given. The great balloon offensive was to be halted. The launches stopped. The factories fell silent. And so, an uneasy quiet descends once more. The wind still blows over the Pacific, an indifferent current connecting two continents. But now it carries only the last few stragglers of the Fugo fleet. A few dozen, perhaps 100 balloons, still drifting silently in the jet stream. Their barometers click, their fuses age, their batteries slowly die. They are phantoms of a failed strategy, their ultimate fate now just a matter of atmospheric chance. A question of where and when they will finally descend. The war in the sky. Take a look at these maps. Each pin, from the deserts of Mexico to the forests of Alaska, and as far east as Michigan, represents a silent arrival. A paper ghost completing a 5,000-mile journey on the wind. Out of roughly 9,000 Fugo balloons launched from Japan, we can confirm that several hundred made it across the Pacific. But only one of these landings resulted in an explosion that claimed lives, the 6 people lost on a quiet Sunday outing near Bly, Oregon. So, what's the final verdict on this strange and ambitious weapon? Strategically, the Fugo was a failure. It started no widespread fires, it didn't disrupt war production, and it certainly didn't turn the tide of the conflict. Its genius wasn't in its destructive power, but in its concept. It was a masterpiece of logistics, a brilliant application of meteorology, and a weapon whose true impact was psychological. It was a testament to the idea that an enemy could reach across the world's largest ocean with nothing more than paper, glue, and hydrogen. But a weapon is never just the metal and materials. It's the people. Think of the Japanese schoolgirls, meticulously pasting together washi paper in their classrooms, believing they were defending their homeland. Think of the engineers like Hidetoshi Takeda, who put their faith not in brute force, but in the elegant mathematics of the jet stream. On the American side, imagine the investigators, piecing together fragments of paper and sand to reverse engineer a weapon they had never seen, tracking it back to a single beach in Japan. And consider the censors who made the controversial but ultimately effective decision to enforce a media blackout, bearing public criticism to deny Japan the satisfaction of knowing their balloons were even arriving. And we cannot forget the heroes who met this threat on the ground. The 555th Parachute Infantry Battalion, the Triple Nickels. These brave African-American soldiers jumped into remote, rugged wilderness to fight fires and disarm bombs, proving their courage and capability under the most demanding conditions. Their service was a crucial, though often overlooked, step on the long road to the desegregation of the U.S. armed forces after the war. The story of the Fugo didn't end in 1945. For decades, unexploded bombs have been discovered by hikers and loggers in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest. Their mechanisms still live, their potential for harm still intact, waiting for careful hands to finally render them safe. The legacy is also in the skies. The very jet stream that Major Oishi and his team charted for warfare became a highway for global aviation, a path that airliners follow to this day, saving time and fuel. In the end, we returned to that quiet hillside in Oregon, now the Mitchell Recreation Area. A simple stone monument stands there, marking the place where the war, in its strangest form, touched American soil in the most tragic way. It's a powerful reminder that in a global conflict defined by massive armies, steel battleships, and atomic fire, something as fragile as paper and gas could cross an ocean, change lives, and leave behind a story that echoes through the decades. It proves that sometimes, the most fascinating chapters of history are written not on the main battlefield, but in the margins. If you appreciate these hidden threads of history, the stories of ingenious inventions, unsung heroes, and the unexpected ways wars are fought, then please subscribe to the channel. We have so many more untold stories to share with you. Thank you for watching.